The phone buzzed on the nightstand, its glow slicing through the dark like a knife. Dylan stared at the screen, Ethan's name flashing, each vibration a fresh wound. "Miss you, Dill." Rufus chewed up my sneakers again. Remember when we got him? It had been 3 months since Ethan left, trading their shared Brooklyn apartment and their scruffy rescue dog for a girl he met on TikTok, a whirlwind romance born from viral dance videos and heart eyes emojis. Dylan, 26, with his sharp jawline and green eyes that could stop traffic, had thought they were building something unbreakable. He and Ethan, both dreamers in a city that chewed up dreamers, had carved out a life together, late-night talks, lazy Sundays with Rufus, stolen kisses in crowded subway cars. But now, Ethan was gone, chasing a fantasy with someone named Kaylee, leaving Dylan to drown in the echoes of their past. The texts came every night, always about Rufus, their scrappy terrier mix. "He's sleeping on your old hoodie again. He barked at the mailman today. Like you taught him." Each message was a tether, pulling Dylan back to a life that no longer existed. He wanted to scream, to block Ethan's number, but his thumb hovered over the reply button, typing and deleting, typing and deleting. He couldn't let go, not yet. Dylan rolled out of bed, the hardwood floor cold against his bare feet. The apartment felt like a museum of their love, every corner holding a memory. The coffee table where they'd binged Schitt's Creek, laughing until their sides ached. The kitchen counter where Ethan had tried, and failed spectacularly, to make gnocchi from scratch, flour dusting his blonde curls like snow. Dylan's chest tightened. He grabbed his phone and typed, "Glad Rufus is still a menace." Night. He hit send before he could overthink it, then tossed the phone across the room. The next morning, Dylan dragged himself to his job at a Greenwich Village bookstore, a cozy spot filled with the scent of paper and coffee. He loved the work organizing shelves, recommending queer lit to curious teens, bantering with his co-worker, Javier, a flamboyant poet with a penchant for dramatic scarves. But today, his heart wasn't in it. Javier noticed immediately. "Spill. Mi amor," Javier said, leaning against a stack of hardcovers, his scarf of vibrant teal. "You look like someone ran over your soul with a truck." Dylan sighed, shelving a copy of Giovanni's Room. Ethan texted again. "About Rufus. It's like he's trying to keep me on a leash." Javier's eyes softened. "He's playing games. Dylan, you deserve better than breadcrumbs from a guy who left you for a TikTok influencer." "I know," Dylan muttered, but the words fell hollow. He didn't know how to move on when Ethan's messages kept pulling him back. He wanted to hate him, but every text was a reminder of the man who'd once made him feel like the only person in the world. That evening, Dylan took Rufus for a walk through Prospect Park, the dog's tail wagging like a metronome. The park was alive with joggers, families, and couples holding hands, their happiness a quiet stab to Dylan's gut. He sat on a bench, Rufus curling up at his feet, and opened TikTok, a habit he hated but couldn't break. Ethan's profile popped up, filled with videos of him and Kaylee dancing in Central Park, kissing at a rooftop bar, her laughter bright and sharp. Dylan's stomach churned. How had their love, so vivid and real, been replaced by this? His phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan. "Rufus misses you." "I do too." Dylan's breath caught. He stared at the words, anger and longing twisting inside him. He wanted to demand answers, Why did Ethan leave? Why did he keep texting? But instead, he shoved the phone in his pocket and stood, tugging Rufus's leash. Come on, buddy. Let's go home. Back at the apartment, Dylan poured a glass of wine and sank onto the couch. He thought about the night he and Ethan had adopted Rufus, a scrawny pup with 2 big ears, from a shelter in Queens. They'd promised to be a family, to face the world together. Now, Dylan was alone, and Ethan was out there, living a life that didn't include him. But those texts, those damn texts, kept the wound fresh, kept hope alive like a cruel joke. He opened his laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. He wanted to write, to pour his pain into words, something he hadn't done since college. Maybe a story, a poem, anything to make sense of the chaos in his heart. But all he could think about was Ethan's hazel eyes, the way they'd sparkled when he laughed, and the way they'd looked when he said, "I'm sorry, Dylan. I have to go." The days bled into weeks, each one marked by Ethan's texts, a relentless drip of nostalgia that kept Dylan tethered to the past. He tried to focus on work, on Rufus, on the small joys of his life, like the way the bookstore's regular smiled when he recommended a new novel or how Javier's laughter filled the quiet moments. But Ethan's words were a shadow, always there, pulling him back to what was. One Saturday, Dylan met his best friend, Marcus, at a dive bar in the East Village. Marcus, a graphic designer with a knack for brutal honesty, slid a beer across the table. "You're letting him haunt you, man," Marcus said, his dark eyes narrowing. "Block his number. Move on." Dylan swirled his beer, watching the foam dissipate. "It's not that simple. Rufus is ours. He's all I have left of him." Marcus leaned forward, voice firm but kind. "Rufus is your dog now. Ethan made his choice. You don't owe him your heart." Dylan nodded, but the words didn't stick. He wanted to believe he could let go, but Ethan's texts were like oxygen. He hated needing them, but he couldn't stop breathing. That night, another message came. Rufus chased his tail for 10 minutes straight. "Wish you'd seen it." Dylan's fingers itched to respond, but he forced himself to put the phone down. The next day, Dylan threw himself into a new project at the bookstore, a queer book club he'd been planning for months. He spent hours curating a reading list, from Call Me By Your Name to Detransition, Baby, hoping the work would drown out the noise in his head. The first meeting was a success, with a dozen strangers sharing stories of love and loss over cheap wine and dog-eared paperbacks. One attendee, a quiet guy named Leo with warm brown eyes and a shy smile, lingered after the group dispersed. "Great picks," Leo said, holding up a copy of the Song of Achilles. "This one wrecked me." Dylan grinned, feeling a spark of something new. "Yeah, it's a gut punch." "You into historical fiction?" Leo nodded, his cheeks flushing. "Among other things." "You ever read Aristotle and Dante?" They talked for an hour, the bookstore empty except for the two of them. Leo was 27, a photographer with a gentle laugh and a passion for capturing candid moments. He was different from Ethan, less intense, more grounded, and Dylan felt a flicker of hope, like a match struck in the dark. They exchanged numbers, and as Leo left, he glanced back with a smile that made Dylan's heart stutter. But that night, Ethan texted again. "Rufus slept on your side of the bed. It's weird without you." The words hit like a punch, erasing Leo's smile from Dylan's mind. He stared at the ceiling, torn between the past and the possibility of something new. He didn't reply, but he didn't block Ethan either. The next week, Dylan met Leo for coffee at a tiny shop in Williamsburg. Leo showed up in a denim jacket, his camera slung over his shoulder, and they talked about everything: art, books, the way New York felt like a living, breathing thing. For the first time in months, Dylan laughed without forcing it. But when Leo reached across the table, his fingers brushing Dylan's, a wave of guilt crashed over him. Was he betraying Ethan? The thought was irrational, but it clung to him like damp clothes. Back home, Dylan scrolled through TikTok, torturing himself with Ethan and Kaylee's videos. They were in LA now, filming at some trendy beach cafe, their smiles perfect and performative. Dylan's chest ached. He wanted to be angry, to hate them both, but all he felt was loss. He typed a reply to Ethan's last text. Sounds like Rufus is keeping you busy, but deleted it before sending. Instead, he called Marcus. I met someone, Dylan said, voice shaky. Leo. He's nice. But Ethan's still in my head. Marcus sighed. You're not going to move on until you cut him off. Dylan. He's using you as a safety net. Dylan knew Marcus was right, but the thought of blocking Ethan felt like losing him all over again. He hung up, staring at a photo on his fridge, him, Ethan, and Rufus at Coney Island, arms around each other, grinning like the world was theirs. He wanted that Dylan back, the one who believed in forever. Fall turned to winter, the city blanketed in a chill that mirrored Dylan's heart. He and Leo started seeing each other regularly, coffee dates, walks through the High Line, quiet evenings at Leo's tiny studio, where they'd listen to vinyl records and talk about their dreams. Leo was patient, never pushing Dylan to define what they were. But his presence was a balm, soothing the raw edges of Dylan's grief. Still, Ethan's texts persisted, each one a splinter under Dylan's skin. Rufus got out today, scared me half to death. Found him in the neighbor's yard. Dylan read the message during a break at the bookstore, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He wanted to ask why Ethan kept doing this, why he couldn't let go, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he shoved the phone in his pocket and went back to work. Javier, ever perceptive, cornered him later. You're glowing, but also not, he said, adjusting his scarf. Is it the new guy or the old one messing with your head? Both, Dylan admitted. Leo's amazing, but Ethan's texts, they're like a ghost I can't shake. Then exorcise him, Javier said, half joking. Write him a letter, burn it, whatever. You gotta let go. Dylan, that night, Dylan sat at his desk, a blank notebook open in front of him. He started writing, not a letter to Ethan, but a story about a man trapped between love and loss, pouring his pain onto the page. The words flowed, raw and unfiltered, and for the first time, he felt like he was reclaiming a piece of himself. When he finished, he read it aloud to Rufus, who tilted his head as if he understood. The next day, Dylan invited Leo to the book club, nervous but excited to share his world. Leo fit in effortlessly, charming the group with his quiet wit and thoughtful insights. After, they walked through the snowy streets, their breath visible in the cold air. Leo stopped under a street lamp, his eyes soft. I like you, Dylan. A lot. But I know you're carrying something heavy. I'm here when you're ready. Dylan's throat tightened. He wanted to tell Leo everything about Ethan. The texts, the dog that tied them together, but instead, he kissed him, soft and tentative, under the falling snow. It was a promise, a step toward letting go. But Ethan's next text came like clockwork. Rufus won't eat his kibble. You always knew how to get him to eat. Dylan stared at the message, anger flaring. Why was Ethan doing this? Was he lonely? Regretful? Or was he just cruel? Dylan typed a reply. Figure it out. Ethan. I'm done. But his finger hesitated over send. He deleted it, heart pounding, and called Leo instead. They met at a diner, the kind with sticky tables and endless coffee refills. Over pancakes, Dylan spilled everything. Ethan's departure, the TikTok girl, the nightly texts. Leo listened, his hand steady on Dylan's, his eyes never wavering. You're worth more than his games, Leo said. You know that, right? Dylan nodded, but doubt lingered. He wanted to believe Leo, to believe in a future without Ethan's shadow. But the past was a heavy anchor. Spring arrived, painting New York in soft pinks and greens. But Dylan's heart was still caught in winter. He and Leo were growing closer, their dates filled with laughter and quiet moments that felt like healing. Yet Ethan's texts were constant undertow, pulling Dylan back to the wreckage of their love. Rufus dug up the garden today. Remember when we planted those herbs? Each message was a reminder of what they'd lost, and Dylan hated how much he still cared. One evening, Dylan and Leo attended a gallery opening in Chelsea, where Leo's photographs were on display. The room buzzed with artsy types, but Dylan only had eyes for Leo, who looked effortlessly handsome in a black turtleneck, his curls catching the light. Leo's work, candid shots of strangers in moments of joy and vulnerability, moved Dylan in a way he hadn't expected. He saw himself in those images, a man searching for light in the dark. After the show, they walked along the Hudson, the city skyline glittering across the water. Leo took Dylan's hand, his voice soft. I want this to work, Dylan. But I need to know you're all in. Dylan's chest tightened. He wanted to be all in, to give Leo everything. But Ethan's texts were a chain around his heart. I'm trying, he said, voice breaking. I need time. Leo nodded, but his eyes held a flicker of hurt. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. That night, Ethan texted again. Rufus is sick. Vet says it's just a bug, but I'm worried. Wish you were here. The words hit Dylan like a brick. He pictured Rufus, his scruffy companion, and his resolve crumbled. He called Ethan, the first time they'd spoken since the breakup. Dylan. Ethan's voice was soft, surprised. Is everything okay? No, Dylan snapped. You can't keep doing this. Ethan. Texting me about Rufus. About us. You left. You chose her. Why are you still holding on? There was a long pause. I don't know, Ethan said finally. I miss you. I miss what we had. Kaylee, it's not the same. Dylan's heart raced, anger and longing colliding. Then why did you leave? Why are you still texting me? I'm messed up, Ethan whispered. I thought I wanted something else, but I don't know how to fix it. Dylan hung up, his hands shaking. He wanted to scream, to cry, to run to Ethan and demand answers. But instead, he called Leo, who showed up at his apartment with takeout and a quiet strength that anchored Dylan. They ate in silence, Rufus curled up between them, and for the first time, Dylan felt like he could breathe. Summer brought heat and clarity, the city pulsing with life as Dylan began to find his footing. He and Leo were officially dating now, their relationship a tentative but growing thing. They spent weekends exploring Brooklyn's flea markets, sharing ice cream in Dumbo, and stealing kisses under the Manhattan Bridge. Leo's patience was a gift, but Dylan knew he had to confront Ethan to truly move forward. One humid July evening, Dylan sat on his fire escape, Rufus snoring at his feet, and typed a message to Ethan, "We need to talk. In person. About Rufus. About us." His heart pounded as he hit send, knowing this could be the end of their tether. Ethan agreed to meet at a coffee shop in Park Slope, neutral ground. When Dylan arrived, Ethan was already there, looking tired but still heartbreakingly handsome, his hazel eyes shadowed with something unreadable. Rufus sat between them, tail wagging, oblivious to the tension. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, voice low. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I got caught up in something I thought I wanted. But I miss you, Dylan. I miss us." Dylan's throat burned. "You don't get to say that now. You left me for her. You don't get to keep me on a leash with texts about her dog." Ethan flinched. "I know I messed up. But Rufus, he's ours. I can't just let go." "Then let go of me," Dylan said, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. "I'm trying to move on. Ethan, I have someone who cares about me. Who's here? You need to stop texting." Ethan's eyes glistened, but he nodded. "Okay. I'll stop. But Rufus, can we figure out a way to share him?" They worked out a schedule. Rufus would split time between them, a practical solution that felt like a small victory. As Dylan left, he felt lighter, like he'd finally cut a thread that had been choking him. That night, he told Leo everything, expecting judgment, but finding only warmth. "You did the hard thing," Leo said, pulling him close. "I'm proud of you." Dylan kissed him, the weight of the past lifting just a little. He wasn't fully healed, but he was ready to try for Leo, for himself, for the future he deserved. By fall, Dylan's life felt like his own again. He and Leo moved in together, their small apartment in Bed-Stuy filled with books, photos, and Rufus's toys. The book club thrived, a safe space for queer stories and shared dreams. Dylan started writing again, his stories published in small literary journals, each word a step toward healing. Ethan kept his promise, no more texts, only occasional updates about Rufus's vet visits or quirky habits. The silence was strange but freeing, like waking from a long dream. Dylan still thought about him sometimes, but the memories no longer stung. They were just part of his story, not the whole of it. One crisp October day, Dylan and Leo took Rufus to Central Park, the leaves a riot of red and gold. They sat on a blanket, Rufus chasing his tail, and Leo pulled out his camera, capturing Dylan's laughter. "You're beautiful," Leo said, his voice full of love. Dylan smiled, his heart full. "So are you." As they walked home, hand in hand, Dylan realized he'd found something Ethan could never give him: peace. The TikTok girl, the texts, the pain, they were all part of a chapter that had closed. He was writing a new one now, with Leo, with Rufus, with himself. The city stretched out before them, alive with possibility. Dylan squeezed Leo's hand, grateful for the man beside him and the strength he'd found within himself. Love, he'd learned, wasn't about holding on to the past. It was about building something new, one brave step at a time.